Hi, you're tuned in and listening to the Wilmac Wire. I'm Charlie Snedden, and today I'll be speaking with Bob Pease. And we have a few questions and queries with regards to continuity replay. Um, Bob.
Yeah, so we launched Continuity Replay Cloud a couple of weeks ago, which was super exciting for Wilmac. It was a pretty big monumental moment for us. We've been working towards moving our solution from an on-prem deployment to a cloud deployment for a while. So I know for myself and the dev team, it was a major milestone to be able to kind of have that clean cut and say, hey, it's out there, it's ready for customers to jump to the cloud.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. As you know, I've been with Wilmac now for just over a year. Originally brought into the Wilmac with my skills on CCAS and workforce management, but having dealt with numerous continuity replay customers, I found myself getting more involved with that, and specifically, engaging with customers and understanding what their requirements are for continuity replay. And we'll touch on that, I guess, when we speak about the development and the future development of continuity replay in the cloud. The last 6 months have been exciting. We've went through a barrage of testing and such like. What's been the kind of best parts for you?
For me, wow. I get excited about a lot of different things. One, there's a lot of best practices out there when you move any product to the cloud that are meant to help you do it successfully, correctly on the first go. So things that are important to us are availability and reliability and security, right? Those are three huge ones, especially with a lot of our customer base being in highly regulated industries. Those types of things come up a lot, right? They're kind of non-starters. If you don't have them in place, no one's going to adopt your cloud solution. When you go to Amazon or Azure or GCP, they've got best practices that are out there for you that you can adopt. And of course, I've been developing cloud solutions on Amazon for 15 years now, I guess.
15 years.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
2011 is when I first started writing products within Amazon. So, for me, I brought all of that and just kind of knew like a bunch of the things we had to go and grab. I love that when you're working on security, for example, they've got those best practices again, but then I can take that and kind of show other people, right? Like it's a little bit different than when you're developing things in your own data center, right? It's harder to prove that you've met certain requirements without having people come physically to your data center to look at it, right? So with things in the cloud, it's all, a lot of it's code based. So we've got all of our infrastructure as code written so that it's always deployed the same and it's going to meet those requirements. So that gets me really excited. I think another thing that has me excited, one of the major goals with the first cloud launch was feature parity with what we had before, right? We did not want to go to our customers and say, hey, you should go to a cloud because we have a new product, right? We very much wanted the story to be the same exact product that you know and love and have been using for the last 5 or 6 years is now available in the cloud, and you're going to be able to do all the same things. Now, of course, we're expanding on it and making it better. Subtle improvements to the user interface, a couple of newer technologies that are going to increase performance and scalability. But by and large, it's the same product.
Yeah, and from the conversations you've had with me, the feature parity was at the top of my list up there.
Yeah.
And I guess what's really important for me as well is some of our customers today come to us with a problem, and that problem is that they're either closing their data center or moving their data center, or they're looking for a little bit more control over that security you mentioned, because they're now featuring or venturing into realms of ISO 27001 and SOC 2, which is where we can go with the cloud platform. And I guess for me, the importance is that ease of transition from that premise-based solution to a cloud. And when we were discussing this, 8 months or so ago, yes, we could have moved a physical server into the cloud and virtualized it in the cloud, but we wanted to bring the new technology that you mentioned to the customers. And one of that features is the reliability and availability. For cloud, when I ventured into cloud many years ago with CCAS platforms, availability was the key thing, because you didn't want your contact center to go down. And some people might think, well, search and play of audio recordings isn't as vital as a contact center. But when you're talking about compliance and you're having to do those data access requests, then availability is essential. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about what we're doing with regards to availability zones and uptime?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to talk about it in two layers, I guess, right? One is there's a primary deployment, which leverages multi-AZ across the board for all of our technology. Luckily, we're using a lot of serverless technology, so it lends itself well because we don't have to think a lot about it. But we are launching a VPC with multiple availability zones, and all of our infrastructure runs within each of those availability zones. What I love most about this, I don't have to think about it. I like to say we get it for free, right?
Right.
It's one of the powers of the cloud, right? And some of the technologies that Amazon in particular offers. I get to just define the VPC, say I need 2, 3 availability zones, and Amazon's actually going to take care of provisioning those resources in those availability zones based on what their availability is. So we get high availability out of that. The second part of this is more about redundancy and disaster recovery. Critical persistent data gets copied to we refer to it as a failover region. So when we launch or when we deploy continuity replay, we pick a primary region where the customers are going to use the data on a day-to-day basis. All of the key data is copied to a secondary region. So in the event of some major disaster or a regional outage, we have the ability to cut our users over to a failover region to really reduce their downtime.
Hmm. And that's well, in my mind, super cool because
Yeah,
the user doesn't see any of that; it just
correct.
happens. There's no impact into that side of things. And I guess one of the other things that intrigued me, and we had a couple of conversations about this before, Bob, is that our premise base used to use SQL Server, and
Mhm.
we have changed our database technology. Maybe you can
Yeah.
expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have two database technologies that we use, and I'll kind of explain the high level reasons for each choice. First off, we'll start with DynamoDB. That is our primary data store. That's our source of truth, if you will. One of the major reasons we wanted to use that is, again, it's serverless in nature. The built-in functionality to DynamoDB, things like time to live, automated backups. There were a bunch of things that we wanted in the product that come along with DynamoDB.
Mhm.
And of course, it's highly performant, so very scalable. All of the data is streamed out of DynamoDB into Amazon OpenSearch, and this is what's going to power our search queries through our web application. Really expands the ability on how we can run searches. It's going to lead into enhanced functionality for the end user. We have
Mhm.
better search controls now. We have type ahead search. We have full text search on certain parts of our data schemas that are going to allow our end user to get to the data they're looking for a little bit quicker than they would be able to through SQL Server.
I think that's really important as well. That performance of the SQL Server. And in my
Yeah.
experience in workforce management, going back many years, we would deploy a SQL Server environment, and the customer would be, I don't want to say nervous, but they would have their concerns because they didn't have a DB admin. They didn't have somebody who could
Yeah.
set up the backups, ensure that the indexes have been maintained and do that optimization on the database. So I think what we're doing today is really important. It just makes it so much easier for customers. And I guess that's one of the great things about what we do with our software.
Yeah.
Talking about the technology we've used for availability zones in the database, you mentioned earlier that we're bringing more features, more to the product, and that's really interesting for me because I'm working with customers every day and they bring ideas to us. But how do we? I guess this is a question to you and for the listeners and the viewers. How do we prioritize those requests? What makes it? What doesn't make it? And where do they go if they don't make it? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. So we have a huge backlog of features that we want within the product. And it starts internally with a big group conversation, right? Like, let's prioritize it. And to be totally honest and transparent with everyone, it's a little bit of a finger in the wind exercise to get us started, right? But it does very quickly bubble up the most urgent features that are going to solve the most urgent problems for our user base. So that's very helpful for us. The second phase of this is then kind of walking through that roadmap with the current customer base, right? And our ongoing conversations with folks, showing them what we have planned for the future and asking them for input on prioritization. It does take, I think, any organization is going to face trouble in how do you prioritize your backlog, and it's an ongoing process, right? We kind of upvote things internally based on customer demands, but that's very much how we want things to be because we are a very customer focused company as a whole in everything that we do, and that's certainly true for continuity replay. Where do things go if they're not addressed? They don't really go anywhere, to be honest. We don't remove things from the backlog. If there's a one-off feature that one customer is asking for that no one else sees a lot of value in, it will stay there until it gains enough traction to bubble up to our priority list. I'm going to take this opportunity to pitch another cool thing with the cloud-based version of Continuity Replay, and that it's API first, which means that our customers, if they have a dev team on their side or an engineering team, they can actually integrate whatever they want with our product. So there's also an avenue of a customer may have a feature request that we can't support today, but they might be able to integrate it or write that feature themselves and kind of bolt it onto the product, leveraging our API.
Yeah, and you know what I'm like with APIs. I'm always in there using Postman.
Yes.
Testing these APIs, testing them out. Delivering capability that our customers have briefly talked about, and I'm like, yeah, we can do that. But then you have to consider that in the application and develop that. There was something else that kind of struck me when you were talking there about the APIs and the usage from the customers. It was our connectors. Connectors, or the term connector for us is a very new term. And essentially, we're just talking about an interface. But I'm really excited to talk about the interfaces for 5.9. We've got one for CX1 and also Amazon Connect. Not all of them are in production today, as you'll probably mention. But how do you feel that we're progressing with those?
Yeah, really well. It's very exciting that we're able to take Continuity Replay from just an archival solution, right? Sometimes back in a back closet collecting dust, that sort of thing, into new opportunities where we're continuously ingesting your production data. It allows us to become your central management plane for your data retention periods and things of that nature. For interaction data within your organization. So it's a really great opportunity. I quite like working on the connectors. It's a lot of fun. It brings up interesting challenges as well. Not every integration with a production CCAS system is the same. They have different requirements. They have different mechanisms for getting the data. Some of them are push, some of them are pull mechanisms. So they're all a little bit different. But yeah, they're going very well. We have 2 of them in progress right now that should be out there by the end of this month. And then we'll kind of continue going down the list there. We have other connectors as well on the roadmap, right, of other systems that folks have asked us to integrate with.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things for us being the API first, as well as you mentioned previously, not only the connectors, but the ability to integrate with other platforms like CRM or even quality platforms where additional valuable metadata is hosted within the platform. Yep. So, apologies, Bob. Yeah, you know this today, but I'm here in Scotland, so there is that time zone between us. But I just thought I'd venture out and just say that we are based in Rochester. We have our offices in Toronto, but we do have a global presence. Whilst I'm over here in the UK, I'm visiting a couple of customers. We've got customers in Australia, and one of the key things that cloud helps us deliver is that global presence for Continuity Replay and the discussion of, say, data sovereignty and Data Protection Act and the California Data Protection Act and everything else. I just wanted to say that it's very easy for us to work in those environments, and when needed, we can travel. We can be there for our customers. All right, so Bob, it's been great speaking to you. Unfortunately, I'm not with you in the office today. I am over here in Scotland. But next time, we'll be face-to-face. And you've been watching Wilmac Wire, Episode 8 with Bob and Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Wilmac Wire. Don't want to miss the next one? Be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And while you're at it, head over to LinkedIn and follow the Wilmac Technologies page to stay up to date on everything happening here at Wilmac Technologies. And again, thank you for tuning in.